So, I want to start this review off like all my other superhero review stuff, just by saying I'm not the biggest comic book reader. I'm just kind of a casual superhero fan. So, if you're expecting a review from someone that knows their shit about comics, then look away because I don't. I'm just kind of a casual superhero fan. So, yeah, just want to get that out of the way. I put that at the start of all my superhero review stuff. Amazing Spider Man 2 takes place a few months or maybe a year or so after Amazing Spider Man 1. And Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy are kind of moving on with their lives. Spider Man's still out there fighting crime and whatnot. And they're graduating. So they're kind of moving on ahead in life, and that plays a major role in the movie. Problem is Peter is having some trouble justifying his dating of Gwen because at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 1, Gwen's dad, with his dying breath, made him promise that he'd stay away from Gwen to keep her safe. And this is actually quite troubling to Peter. So there's a lot of big relationship stuff with that, and I actually want to go ahead and say that this is probably the best that any of the Spider-Man movies have been with just Spider-Man in a relationship in general, and kind of the balance between Peter's personal feelings and the safety of the girl he loves. A lot of really interesting stuff done with that. I really, really liked that part of the movie, and you don't see that a lot in superhero movies in general. A lot of times the relationships are kind of half-assed. I thought it was a major part of the movie, and I thought it was done pretty well. But that's not only it. Spider-Man has to deal with a new supervillain that has kind of come up called Electro that has power over electricity and is a pretty powerful foe. Meanwhile, Harry Osborn, who is one of Peter's childhood friends, has moved back into the city and has kind of taken over Oscorp after his father's death. However, it's a little bit more complicated than that because he learns that he has a genetic disease that will eventually kill him unless he does something to cure that. So yeah, definitely a movie packed full of a lot of stuff. Pretty complicated plot going on here. A lot of stuff packed into one movie, and I know a lot of critics complained about this, simply because a lot of people thought that they didn't have enough time to focus on one, like each individual part of that plot, and it just got a little too complicated for its own good and just kind of struggled because of that. I actually thought that it did. Once in a while, it got a little too muddled for its own good, but I thought they covered everything fine enough. Generally, I thought that it wasn't nearly as bad as everyone made it out to be, and it's still a pretty solid story overall, except one or two points are a little eh. A few points could have gotten a little more screen time, or possibly some subplots could have been moved to another movie. And I think that's a large part of that's a big problem with this movie is I think they focus a little bit too much on setting up stuff for the other movies, and well, I guess I'll say as an individual story that can kind of bring it down as a standalone work because they do focus a little bit on the future on the future of the franchise and where the story direction is going to go and all that. When I think there's a few points where they should be focusing on the story within the movie itself. Stop worrying about the future, deal with what's going on now. Um, so that's kind of an issue at some points, but other than that, I really liked the story and where this went. A very fast paced movie, I'd say, and each scene I'd say really serves a purpose. It's kind of weird to say, but it's pretty tightly packed. I wouldn't say there's a lot of filler, aside from maybe the intro sequence, which is just kind of a humorous little Spider-Man escapade thing going on. Other than that, I'd say that this movie really uses its time wisely, so I really appreciate that. Um, Going on more so into the characters, of course, I touched on this. You have Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy being the big two, and there's a lot of relationship stuff going on there, and it's kind of an on again, off again type of relationship throughout the movie, and them trying to figure out who they are and what they want versus their relationship, and it's a lot more complicated than I think most superhero movies tend to do with romantic stuff. which I really, really like because it felt very fleshed out. It felt very real. This is totally something I can see two people. I mean, hell, I was. I've never had really a relationship problem like this before, but I know a lot of people that after high school they kind of had to reassess their lives and where they were at, and sometimes that did involve their significant other and what role they played in their lives. So I thought they did a really great job with that, and I'm gonna stop talking about it because I think you guys get the point. But that's not the only character relationship thing going on. We also have this very, very big part of the movie with Peter trying to figure out a little bit more information on his parents, and he's a little frustrated with them. He wants to know why exactly they left him hanging. They left him with his aunt and uncle, and on top of that, what the hell were they researching, and where exactly are they now? So I'd say with that subplot, it's not necessarily. I don't think the big part of that subplot, or at least it wasn't for me, was figuring all that stuff out as much as Peter's relationship with Aunt May, because that was actually some of the better parts of the film, in my opinion. There's a lot of really intense scenes emotionally involving Aunt May where she kind of has a tough time admitting that Peter isn't her son. There's a really interesting story going on there that once again feels very real and very, very well done, where there's kind of this possessiveness going on with Aunt May and who really raised Peter Parker and all that stuff. And that was I was shocked because I really didn't know about that going into the movie, and I really that kind of got to me too because it's like, wow, that's I can't believe they're really dealing with that issue because I don't really think a lot of, or at least a lot of Spider-Man stuff I've seen. Maybe it's just because I'm not that much into the comic book side of it and all that stuff. At least in terms of the movies, they never really dealt with an issue like that, and that was really, really surprising to see. Just the family side of it and kind of what's going on with his parents and how that exactly affects Aunt May. So that was just really cool. I really loved that. So yeah, a lot of the stuff on the Peter Parker and his friends and family, a lot of that relationship stuff, really, really awesome. Now, the characterization and the stuff that goes on with the villains kind of I didn't care for as much. So I guess moving on with Electro, who I guess you could say is the main villain of this movie. Electro, really, I didn't care for as a both as I guess as a villain, he's cool because they have all these really nice special effects and the fights with them are nice and all that. But as a character and in terms of story, I didn't care for him the best because what they do is he's basically a Spider-Man fanboy and he's a little disturbed as a person. He's a little bit crazy, and eventually he does get his superpowers, and he just goes crazier and crazier. But one thing that's really weird and that I really did not care for at all is that there are parts of the movies where you can hear him thinking, and he kind of thinks in like this rhythm, and as he gets more angry, the rhythm like speeds up. But it just sounds really stupid because there's one point where he's thinking something like they hate at me or they hated me, they shot at me, they hated, and it just seems really fucking corny and dumb. And I was like, it's a serious scene, and I was like, man, this is fucking pathetic. Like I was kind of laughing, like the rhythm part just ruined the scene. I thought it was a stupid choice. But he's just not interesting as a villain because he just kind of comes off as this whiny asshole that really likes Spider-Man, but Spider-Man kind of pissed him off a bit, so then he immediately flips a shit and becomes this evil villain that's willing to destroy an entire city because Spider-Man pissed him off a little bit. I thought it was really dumb. It wasn't the best that the writers have done with Spider-Man villains, I'm sure. And then we have Harry Osborn, who is a little bit better, and I do like Harry Osborn kind of is the anti-Peter in a way because he has to make a choice between being responsible and getting what he wants. And I think we all know that he's going to take a separate route from Peter. And it's really interesting to see how that plays out thematically. But still at the same time, I think this is another issue going back to some subplots of this movie don't have as much screen time as others. It feels kind of rushed in some parts, and there's Harry Osborn makes some really weird decisions in this movie that I felt were kind of unnatural and really stupid. This is one thing that I see a lot of people talking about where Harry is in a rush to get a cure because his father tells him that he is dying early on in the film. Harry has like a good 40, 50 years before he is going to die, but he's acting like he's going to die next week. He's freaking out about it, and it just. He's supposed to be a smart dude. So to see him just kind of freak out and have this really, really, I guess, just kind of anxious response uh, just doesn't seem within the character that we saw earlier on in the film, and he just kind of becomes more evil as it goes until he finally just becomes batshit crazy. I thought they could have done it better, and again, I really think that they could have spent a bit more time or maybe reworked some of the plot to make him just overall a better character. Like maybe he had a more serious version of the disease or mutated or something. He was gonna die next week or something. That I could understand, but as it is, it just seems like he's really, really anxious about something that's gonna happen down the line that he has the money to invest in and possibly find a cure for naturally, but he wants to take the easy way out, and it just seems like sloppy writing. Going back a bit to Electro, a lot of the special effects and stuff they do with the electricity is really cool. There's a lot of Dr. Manhattan influence going on, I can tell, with just some of the ways that he kind of emerges out of the power grid and the general blue glowish effect they have and they give to him. It feels like they're really inspired by Watchmen, which I'm fine with because Watchmen was awesome, both in graphic novel and movie form. So yeah, copy Watchmen. um, and overall, just the fight scenes with Electro were really cool. Green Goblin, on the other hand, looked kind of stupid. Not as stupid as the Raimi films, but I mean, the Raimi films take pride in their stupidity, so that's half the fun of those. But this is a bit more of a serious universe for Spider-Man, and I thought Green Goblin just looked really fucking stupid. Especially, like, his face gets kind of fucked up because of, like, when he gets his superpowers, his face just gets all disfigured, and it's supposed to look menacing, but it just looks really stupid. I guess kind of related is I saw this in 3D, and it was funny because I was with my friend and we were going to see this, and he said, "Oh, do you want to see this right now in 3D, or we could drive around and maybe grab some food, wait 30 minutes for the 2D show?" And I'm like, "Yeah, fuck it. I feel like seeing Spider-Man." And as we were paying for the movie and stuff or whatever, I'm like, "Man, I think the last movie I saw in 3D was Amazing Spider-Man 1, so what better way to see the sequel than in 3D as well?" And I must say, I was actually pretty impressed with the 3D in this. I thought it was pretty good. Nothing felt forced, because, of course, there's always movies that are shot directly for 3D and all of the crazy effects that gives and all this stuff, but a lot of the web swinging looked really, really great in 3D, and I thought it added quite a bit to the experience. Generally, I didn't have any complaints with it. It was it. I wouldn't say that it's necessary for the film, but man, it was pretty cool. I usually don't even care for seeing movies in 3D, but I must say I really appreciated seeing this one in 3D. The last point I really want to hit on was that the acting was overall pretty good. Andrew Garfield, Emma Stone, and oh shit, I can't remember the dude who plays can't remember the dude that plays Harry Osborn, but those three definitely were probably the main three that were really great with their acting. Ever since Chronicle, the dude that plays Harry has kind of been typecast as the whiny, insane teenager, which I'm fine with because he plays that role really well, even when the writing may not be the best. A lot of the scenes, again, with those three characters, just really, really great acting. even sometimes, though, like I said before, the writing may not be the best for the scene. Now, I'm going to close out the review here because I want to talk about something that's not um, it's not big enough to warrant a second spoiler part, but it's a big thing, and I feel kind of obligated to talk about it. So I'm going to close out and say that this was an 8 out of 10. I know a lot of people are kind of. These movies are kind of divisive. A lot of people aren't entirely sure if they really like the Amazing Spider-Man movies, but I think so far, given these two movies, they're not the best, but they're good. They're solid movies, and I think it's a great addition to the Spider-Man mythos. So I'm gonna give this an 8 out of 10. Really fun time. Few flaws here and there, and I really hope that they patch everything up for the next few, because I know they're not gonna stop with three. I'd be really surprised if they did, given how much plot is set up here. I really liked this, so I'm gonna close it out here, and I really just want to talk about a spoiler thing right now. So you have like 5 seconds to go leave this video before you are spoiled, and yeah, I'll start talking now. So, the death of Gwen Stacy uh, finally shows up for the first time in film, if I'm not mistaken. Animated, or I'm not sure if it's ever been animated. I'm not entirely sure, but this is definitely the first time live action that the death of Gwen Stacy has been done, and I thought it was okay. Definitely not the best way they could have done it, but it was okay. It did the job. Actually, more importantly, is that I think that was supposed to be the big emotional thing that got to you in this movie, but for me, it really wasn't. The ending, though, I'd say is great, and it's kind of Peter Parker getting over Gwen's death. There's this really great scene with the Rhino and this kid that Spider-Man helped out earlier in the movie, and Spider-Man's kind of absent after Gwen's death, but this kid kind of like takes on the Rhino, or like he stands up against the Rhino when the Rhino's out rampaging or whatever, and there's this great scene where Spider-Man just kind of jumps back into action and kind of like supports that kid, and I was like, wow, that was a fantastic way to end the movie, with just showing how big of a symbol Spider-Man is to the population, and that kid saying, you know what, fuck it, this is what Spider-Man would do, and I don't know, that really got to me for some reason, and I was like, wow, that's a fantastic scene. Actually, one more thing I probably should have mentioned in the review proper. Uh, Fuck the marketing people for putting Rhino in like all the advertising, because he's here for like all of 10 minutes, not even. That was a really fucking stupid decision on their part, because he's just there for the ending. But yeah, I was kind of shocked that that scene got to me more than Gwen's death did. Uh, I just felt obligated to talk about that because it's such a big part of the Spider-Man story as a whole, and the experience of Spider-Man himself, is that death of Gwen Stacy and how it changes him as a person. So overall, thought they did an okay job with it. Could have been better, but it definitely could have been a hell of a lot worse. So that was fine. Now, yeah, like I said before, pretty good movie. Not the best, but overall, I'd say it's a good movie in its own right.